It is February 21st, 1921. More than 1,000 Cossack soldiers have halted near Tehran. Their commander is a tall officer whose sun-bronzed, determined face and the scar under his eyebrow show his extensive experience on the battlefield. At the same time, 4 people from Tehran come to meet him. Sayyid Ziauddin Tabatabai, General Amir Ahmadi, Colonel Kazem Khan Sayyah, and Major Masood Khan Kayhan. The final arrangements are made, and they swear on the Quran to remain loyal to the independence of the homeland and the Shah, and to march the next day to capture Tehran and launch a coup against the government of Prime Minister Sepah Rashti. The decision for this coup was made with the help of General Edmund Ironside, the British general tasked with withdrawing British troops from Iran and without the knowledge of the British government. In the early hours of Monday, February 22nd, the Cossack forces entered Tehran and, according to a systematic plan, took control of police stations, military posts, and ministries. That same afternoon, the people of Tehran saw a proclamation posted on the city walls, headed with the words, "I decree."
We are the true patriots of this country, and we have girded our loins to put an end to this miserable state of affairs. We are ready to bring traitors to justice and support a strong government worthy of the dignity and grandeur of the imperial nation.
At the bottom of this proclamation was the signature of Reza Khan, a commander unknown to the public and even to some political figures. Reza Khan, who suffered from the incompetence of the political figures of the time, had long been waiting for an opportunity to take decisive action to bring order to Iran's chaotic situation. He had started his service in the Cossack Brigade in his youth as an errand boy. He had earned his military ranks step by step through perseverance, and now the Cossack forces under his command had captured Tehran. Four days after the coup, the Shah issued a proclamation declaring his full agreement with the demands of the coup leaders. In this same proclamation, Sayyid Zia's premiership was anticipated, and Reza Khan was given the title of Sardar Sepah. At the beginning of the coup government, Sardar Sepah had no official position other than commanding the Cossack forces, until he was appointed Minister of War after some time. But from the very beginning, when Reza Khan noticed Sayyid Zia's frequent meetings with the British ambassador, he parted ways with him. The dispute between the two became more serious when Reza Khan dismissed the British officers in Iran, which was met with opposition from Sayyid Zia. Sayyid's dependence on the British became clearer day by day, and consequently Sardar Sepah prepared the ground for the fall of his cabinet. Finally, on May 25, 1921, only 3 months after the coup, Ahmad Shah dismissed Sayyid Zia from his post by royal decree. After that, Reza Khan served as Minister of War in the governments of Kavamos Saltane, Moshir Odaule, and Mostofi ol Mamalek until October 1923. Initially, he was not very interested in direct involvement in politics. But when they did not provide him with enough money to strengthen a unified Iranian army, he took direct action himself. In November 1921, when Sardar Sepah had not yet received the necessary funds for army expenses, he seized a money cart belonging to the British Imperial Bank, which managed the government's financial sector, to turn it over to the army's accounting department. When the British bank protested, Sardar Sepah replied that this money belonged to the Iranian government and that he would issue them a receipt on behalf of the government. During his tenure as Minister of War, Reza Khan expelled all British advisors from Iran and finally handed Colonel Smythe his dismissal notice as the last British advisor in Iran. The Times of London wrote about this on September 23, 1921. Armitage Smythe, who had originally gone to Iran to advise and guide the country's financial affairs, returned to England, and with his departure, the last vestige of the Anglo-Persian agreement disappeared. On the eve of the new solar century and coinciding with Reza Khan's coup, Iran had reached the peak of chaos and disintegration. Uprisings, sometimes out of goodwill and sometimes for plunder and raids, had left no roads safe and no city in order. When Sardar Sepah arrived, virtually no part of Iran was peaceful, and the fruits of the constitutional revolution, which was defined by Iran's integrity, were being wasted in internal conflicts. Sardar Sepah single-handedly with a disorganized army, without training or advanced weapons, went to fight the rebels, and more importantly, he did this with Iranian officers and Iranian capital. This time, unlike in the past, the Iranian army won the battles one by one, without asking for foreign help. And Reza Khan thus succeeded in establishing unity and restoring security to his homeland. The security and peace that the people needed to resume their normal daily lives. The lives and property of the nation were now safe, and their families enjoyed relative comfort. The Ministry of War had now become a model for other ministries, and Sardar Sepah an efficient manager and savior of the government. Now that Iran's military force was strengthened, Sardar Sepah, by decree on January 6th, unified Iran's various armies and brought them all under a single system. During Sardar Sepah's tenure as Minister of War, the government changed hands among only 3 people, none of whom lasted more than a few months. The rest of the political figures were either not in Ahmad Shah's circle of trust or refused to cooperate. Despite Ahmad Shah's fear of Reza Khan rising to power, he saw no choice but to appoint him prime minister. Ahmad Shah himself left for Europe and appointed Reza Khan as prime minister. Ahmad Shah's stay in Europe became prolonged, and the people complained about the Shah's constant travels, which were funded by borrowing from foreign governments. Meanwhile, in Turkey, the Ottoman Caliphate had collapsed, and Mustafa Kemal Pasha Ataturk was introduced as the first president of Turkey. In February 1924, the clamor for a republic also rose in Iran. Sardar Sepah also became determined to propose the abolition of the Qajar monarchy and the establishment of a republic upon the opening of the Fifth Majlis. Among the members of parliament, the high-ranking clergy and scholars were fierce opponents of the republic, while the reformists were in favor. Many people, led by the opponents of the plan, gathered in the parliament courtyard, and shouts of "Death to" and "Long live" were heard. Finally, a violent clash broke out, involving the military and even Sardar Sepah himself. Meanwhile, in the corridors of parliament, a heated argument also took place between Sardar Sepah and Sayyid Hassan Modares. Modares, who led the minority group, considered the foundation of a republic to be contrary to Islamic laws.
I oppose a republic because a republic is not suited to the true Jafari path. But I agree with the monarchy of any capable man.
Thus, the republic was halted due to the opposition of the clergy, and Sardar Sepah was disappointed in the presidency. The declaration of republicanism in Iran so strained relations between Ahmad Shah and Sardar Sepah that the Shah, on the advice of the parliament's minority group led by Modares, decided to dismiss Sardar Sepah. Reza Khan, who found out about the transmission of these confidential telegrams early, preempted the move and resigned from the premiership. As this news spread across the country, a flood of telegrams poured into the parliament. Everyone knew well that no one could manage Iran's critical situation as well as he could. Reza Khan's supporters in parliament said that if Sardar Sepah stepped down, it would be like the day Nasr al-Din Shah dismissed Amir Kabir. The parliament, however, was initially reluctant and gave votes of confidence to other figures for the premiership. But they, seeing the country's situation as too ruined for them to do anything, refused to accept the premiership. Consequently, the parliament again gave a vote of confidence to Sardar Sepah on the condition that he obey the Shah and the parliament. Sardar Sepah, who was constantly informed of the details of the plots by Ahmad Shah and the Crown Prince against him, sought to find a solution. He raised this issue in a private meeting with some of his trusted associates, emphasizing that a single telegram from the Shah in Europe could undo all his efforts. One of these trusted associates was Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, who was a member of parliament at the time. Seeking a way, he deduced from an article of the Constitution that the National Consultative Assembly could, if necessary, grant the supreme command of the armed forces to the Prime Minister. Considering the country's conditions and the progress of the army under Sardar Sepah, the parliament put this plan to a vote. Thus, Thus, with the parliament's approval, Reza Khan also assumed the supreme command of Iran's armed forces. Reza Khan, sometimes with the harshness of a military man and sometimes with the cooperation of political figures, had now removed all obstacles one by one. From September 1925, demands for the deposition of the Qajar dynasty increased from the public as well as from statesmen and parliamentarians. Gradually, some clergy and ministry employees went in groups to the house of the Prime Minister, who was now called Reza Pahlavi, and spoke against the Qajars. Representatives from the provinces said, "We will stay here until the matter is settled once and for all." Finally, several MPs in favor of changing the monarchy, in view of the dissatisfaction with the Qajar rule and the complaints received, prepared a double urgency bill. Some MPs opposed it, Modarres being one of them. He said this decision was unconstitutional. On the day of the vote, October 31st, he left the parliament in protest. Only 4 representatives spoke in parliament that day against the deposition bill. Besides Sayyid Hassan Taqizadeh and Yahya Dawlatabadi, Hossein Allah said that by signing this bill, we are promoting something that is harmful to the country. Dr. Mossadegh, who was in the opposition camp this time, believed that Reza Khan had rendered valuable services to the country as Prime Minister and Commander-in-Chief, and that keeping him in this position was more effective. But if he becomes Shah, according to Article 45 of the Constitution, he is exempt from all responsibilities. Therefore, the country will lose an effective and capable Prime Minister. Ultimately, this bill was approved by the National Consultative Assembly, with 80 representatives present. Thus, the Qajar dynasty was dissolved after 130 years of ruling over Iran. The parliament's board of directors went to Sardar Sepah's house to congratulate him on assuming the head of the provisional government. On Sunday, December 6, 1925, the first Constituent Assembly of the Iranian Constitution was held in Tehran to vest the monarchy in the Pahlavi dynasty. On December 15th, Reza Khan went to the National Consultative Assembly with special ceremonies. He knelt before the Holy Quran, picked it up and kissed it, and read the text of Article 39 of the Constitution as the royal oath. December 16th was chosen for ascending the marble throne and performing the first salam ceremony, which was actually the day Reza Shah's reign began. During the performance of the heroic general salam music, Reza Shah appeared before everyone in his familiar attire. The same military uniform and boots that told of the grueling path he had traveled on his way to power. The sword that had brought relative peace to his country, and the hat on which the Darya-e-Nur diamond now shone. He who had removed obstacles one by one from a common soldier to the throne is now on the threshold of 50. During the playing of the first salam music next to the marble throne, a young boy in a military uniform is present. That boy is Mohammad Reza, the new crown prince of Iran, his own son. The coronation ceremony of Reza Shah Pahlavi was held on April 25, 1926, in the main hall of the Golestan Palace. Reza Shah entered the palace grounds in a glass carriage drawn by 6 bay horses. Army generals and ministers each carried a piece of the royal regalia which symbolized sovereignty. Reza Shah took the Jahangosha sword of Nader Shah and buckled it to his waist. Then he took the Pahlavi crown and placed it on his head. Iran was not prosperous on the eve of Reza Shah's reign. This lack of prosperity was noticeable even in comparison with Iran's neighboring countries at that time. Iran's economic institutions were primitive and society was still agrarian. Several major cities in Iran still had an old structure and resembled villages more than 20th century cities. The alleys were narrow, dusty in summer, and muddy in winter, and welfare had no meaning for the people. Reza Shah had previously shown in his track record that he was inherently an executive and a man of action. For years, he had seen and traversed the entire country up close on battlefields. He quickly concluded the coronation ceremony and its associated formalities and parties to cast aside the luxurious and formal royal robes as soon as possible, and contrary to the tradition of previous kings, roll up his sleeves to develop the whole of Iran. In his first step, he went after the long-standing dream of Iranians: the construction of the Trans-Iranian Railway. The construction of the Trans-Iranian Railway. But the first problem was not laying the tracks, but the lack of sufficient money for this work. Reza Shah's policy was never to take loans from any foreign government. Since the Qajar era, the plan for a railway line running from east to west, creating a passage from Iraq to India, had been proposed, and the British highly favored it. But Reza Shah's view was exactly the opposite of Britain's desire. The Iranian railway was not merely a transport project. It was, in a way, an expression of Iran's independence. To fund the construction of the railway, Reza Shah imposed an indirect tax on imported consumer goods such as tea and sugar. Political and military considerations occupied Reza Shah's mind more than anything else. After extensive studies by American consulting engineers, The Iranian railway was finally planned from the northeast to the southwest, from the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf. This railway route allowed Iran to quickly move troops to the north and south in the event of a military threat from the Soviet Union or Britain. Also, to avoid any danger, the railway did not pass through any major city except Tehran. Finally, in 1927, the first ground was broken for the railway. "50,000 workers were employed. They carved tunnels through the mountains, which were called stone pipes back then. Hills were leveled and bridges were built over valleys so the railway could pass through the heart of the mountains, putting Iran on the path of progress." Reza Khan personally inspected the various stages of the railway construction and kept track of the progress, a habit that came from his military background and stayed with him for years. Building the railway would take years, and the lack of connection between cities had to be resolved as quickly as possible. Security on one hand and economic progress on the other depended on easy communication between cities. Across the vast expanse of Iran, there were only a few hundred kilometers of paved roads, and traveling even short distances took days and sometimes months. At the same time, Turkey and Egypt had over 4,500 kilometers of railways. Consequently, alongside the railway construction, road building was also put on the agenda. After a long time, the person at the helm of power in Iran had created a platform to pull the entire country out of its state of lethargy. Reza Shah was relentless in modernizing Iran and expected a great deal from his government staff. Reza Shah's inner circle mostly consisted of people he had chosen for his future plans during his time as Minister of War and Prime Minister. Angodi. Statesmen who played a role in Reza Shah's rise to power and consolidation, and whose fates would later turn out quite differently. Reza Shah, who was a military man himself and saw Iran in need of a strong army, paid great attention to it. Modernizing the national army was achieved by establishing the three branches of the armed forces. The military academy was established, and the conscription law was implemented. On November, tourist draftion took place. With the purchase of 13 German Junkers aircraft, Iran's air force expanded, and thus, Iran quickly acquired a modern and powerful army. In the early years of Reza Shah's reign, Iran's population was declining due to several deadly waves of contagious diseases. Reza Shah, who had personally witnessed the deaths caused by terrifying contagious diseases across Iran, quickly agreed in 1926 to the proposal to establish the Health Department, which later became the Ministry of Health, and this department implemented new regulations. At the beginning of the new century, modernism and the desire for modernization had also affected Eastern lands and countries. And this wasn't just about modernizing the cityscapes. The physical appearance of the locals and their clothing were also constantly changing over time. Middle Eastern countries, especially Turkey and Iran, as gateways from west to east, were experiencing these changes at a faster pace. And the people living in these lands had to quickly adapt to the new conditions as they transitioned from tradition. In the fall of 1928, the Uniform Dress Law was passed, which included suits and the Pahlavi hat. However, clergymen, religious authorities, and seminary students were exempted from this law. With the opening of textile factories, encouraging people to wear clothes made in Iran began. In the beginning of the dress uniformization, there was a lot of resistance to using Iranian-made clothes, which led the prime minister of the time to issue an order to government offices, commanding them to wear domestic clothing.
Although foreign goods cannot be compared to domestic ones in terms of fabric quality and cheapness, the patriotism and love for the country of the employees and the people must inevitably resist, preferring domestic goods in whatever form they may be, and the ministries must encourage and persuade their staff to at least make their work clothes domestic, so that all domestic factories, through the increase of customers, can expand.
Iran was developing, and the need for laws in tune with the times was felt more than ever. Before that, personal status matters, from marriage to transactions and resolving disputes arising from them, were settled by clergymen and local elders. The country could no longer rely on traditional institutions. And finally, through the efforts of Ali Akbar Davar, the civil code was proposed to the parliament to organize these matters and was passed in 1928. With the creation of civil laws, judicial reforms, and the establishment of the Bar Association, the daily recourse of people to the clergy and traditional methods of handling complaints and resolving disputes decreased, and a new form of social relations was defined among the Iranian people. The influence of the clergy gradually waned, and their sphere of activity was limited only to religious affairs. Years passed quickly, and Iran was gradually becoming law-abiding. The responsibility of running telegraph offices, ports, banks, and government departments was now in the hands of government employees, who were chosen from among the people themselves. Now, the Iranian government had 13 ministries in the modern sense to supervise affairs. Gradually, the people became familiar with the concept of bureaucracy and the mechanism of the government handling their requests. Before that, education was exclusive to the aristocracy, who studied with private tutors, and ordinary people learned basic literacy in traditional schools and from female tutors. With the reform and advancement of the educational system, traditional schools lost their popularity and were replaced by newly established schools and a structured educational system. It was also approved that from 1928 to 1933, 100 students would be sent to Europe by the government every year to learn various technical skills. A budget of 100,000 tomans per year was allocated for every 100 students, and it was decided that they must serve in government offices for half the duration they received educational expenses from the government. While construction was everywhere and the face of the cities was changing day by day, urban life was budding and growing in Iran, a growth that took place in a short time and at a high speed. More than 100 streets and 10 new squares were constructed in Tehran. The special Pahlavi Road was extended from Tehran to the village of Tajrish. The alleys, passages, and streets of the city took on a new look. Sidewalks were built, and the city took on a modern shape. Wooden utility poles were installed in the streets of Tehran, and it was decided that the city lights should stay on for more hours of the night. The people's need for inner-city transportation led to 21 buses starting to operate in Tehran and Shemiran. Regulations were set for the bicycle, which had recently appeared on the streets of Iran, and gradually simple and basic rules and regulations for driving private cars and buses were approved and implemented. The way people spent their leisure time changed, and they now spent time in cafes and restaurants. The gramophone was imported into the country. Kamarol Moluk Vaziri's voice was recorded on a gramophone record, which back then was called Preserving the Voice. Also, the Music Academy was established to collect and arrange local music and traditional songs of Iran. Having spent the first 5 years of his reign, Reza Shah had passed the age of 50. He was a disciplined and moral man. Family life was of greater importance to him. He almost always ate his meals with his children. He was attached to the entire dynasty he had founded and anxious about his eldest son, Mohammad Reza, who was not very old at the time and had to be trained for years to become an experienced ruler. For this reason, the Crown Prince was sent to Switzerland in September 1931 to continue his education. From 1928 to 1932, negotiations were underway between Iran and the Anglo-Persian Oil Company over Iran's share of oil resources. According to an agreement known as the Darcy Concession, which was concluded during the reign of Mozaffar ad-Din Shah, the concession for the discovery, extraction, and exploitation of oil in southern Iran was granted to William Darcy, a British investor, for 60 years, and in return, Iran received 16% of the net profit from oil sales. In the autumn of 1932, the 5-year negotiations with the Anglo-Persian Oil Company did not reach the result desired by Reza Shah, and the share paid to Iran was reduced to less than a quarter, under the pretext of the economic crisis, which enraged Reza Shah. In a meeting with the cabinet, Reza Shah asked for the oil file, threw it into the stove, and set it on fire. In a meeting with the cabinet, Reza Shah asked for the oil file, threw it into the stove, and set it on fire. With the news of cancellation, Reza Shah ordered all cinemas to be free for the public on the occasion of this national celebration. On the other hand, the British government's reaction to the unilateral cancellation of the contract was unexpected. They threatened Iran and announced that they would consider all options to resolve this issue. On November 24, 1932, Britain filed a complaint against Iran with the Council of the League of Nations. Ali Akbar Davar, Iran's representative in this council, presented the issue in such a way that the British government has no jurisdiction to complain against Iran because the party to Iran's contract is a private company, and this matter must be handled in Iran's own courts. He stated that the only reason for his presence in the League of Nations was to complain against the British government for interfering in Iran's internal affairs. The League of Nations also postponed the handling of the case, which led to the resumption of negotiations. Finally, the negotiations between Iran and the Anglo-Persian Oil Company led to the signing of the 1933 agreement. Now, the oil company had to give 21% of its total oil production to Iran, regardless of profit and loss. The oil company was obliged to pay Iran's outstanding debts, and also the area of land under its supervision was reduced by 80%. Before that, only trivial posts were given to Iranians, But in the new contract, Iranian engineers and technicians also had to be trained and participate in the work every year. Following that, the Abadan Institute of Technology was established to train a new generation of Iranians to run the oil industry. In return for these new conditions, which had been rewritten in Iran's favor, the oil company requested an extension of the contract, which was extended for another 32 years by agreement of both parties. Relations between Iran and Britain cooled, and Reza Shah showed them no favor whatsoever. Following that, Britain, in search of an alternative region, quietly moved its naval bases from Bushehr to Bahrain, and finally changed the flight path of its planes from Iran's sky to the southern edge of the Persian Gulf. Also, the Iranian government took ownership of that part of the British telegraph lines and telegraph offices that had been on Iranian soil for about 70 years. Trade between Iran and England decreased, and now America, Germany, Italy, and other European countries became trade partners with Iran, and their consultants and engineers came to Iran to design and develop projects. In this way, Iran's foreign relations during its new transformation reached their lowest level with Britain. Reza Shah had realized his long-standing dream and that of Iranians, which was to create a powerful and independent government free from foreign presence. Now he expected the international community to emphasize that the Iranian government is no longer a puppet of the great powers and must be respected. For this reason, unlike Ahmad Shah, who was fascinated and enchanted by Europe, he had neither the opportunity nor the desire to travel to Europe. He believed that heads of state and his European counterparts should travel to Iran. The long and exhausting negotiations over the oil issue made Reza Shah doubt the alertness and efficiency of those around him and come to the conclusion that he must now take all government affairs under his direct supervision. A brief look at the list of tasks and Reza Shah's relentless hard work testified to his firm and resolute determination. But during these years, his body had weakened. Years of military service in harsh conditions and fighting in malaria-prone areas had severely reduced his strength, so much so that he looked much older than a man in his mid-50s. Poor physical condition on the one hand, and negotiations, numerous compromises with various representatives as required by the times, gradually made him distrust the parliamentary system. All of which caused a change in Reza Shah's behavior and attitude towards his powerful entourage. Reza Shah's only trip abroad took place in June 1934 to Turkey.
Doğu komşularımızdan İran Şahı Rıza Pahlavi 16 Haziran 1934'te Ankara'ya geldi. Atatürk, İran Şahı'nı kardeşçe karşıladı ve iki dost devlet reisinin görüşmeleri çok samimi bir hava içinde geçti.
Among Iran's close neighbors, Reza Shah had the best relationship with Turkey. And now, in order to strengthen his Ashrat Segurat, he had set off for there.
Zat-ı şahanlarını Türkiye'de kabul ettiğimizden dolayı çok mesut ve bahtiyarız efendim.
من نهایت خوشبختم او آرزوی دیرینه که varım de muvaffak oldum.
Çok teşekkür ederiz efendim. Çoktan beri teşrif-i şahanınıza intizar ediyorduk efendim. Büyük hasretle ve derin samimiyetle. Çok mesuduz ki o mülakat gününe malik olmuş bulunuyoruz.
Ben de şayet biləsiniz ki neçə ildən qabaq ki mən sizin nümayəndə xüsusunda arz elədim ki gələcəm Türkiye'ye.
Çok teşekkür ederim.
Ziyaretli.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Tabii arkadaşlığımız çok eski zamandan, çok eski senelerden beri başlamış bulunuyor. Bunu şahsen birbirimizi tanımak suretiyle şüphesi çok kuvvetlendireceğiz efendim.
Gaflet şayet olmuştu sabır. Vali ümidvarek akiyette cebran edecek.
Hiç şüphe yok efendim. Biz de bütün memleketçe aynı fikir ve kanaattayız efendim.
The result of this trip was the magnificent and respectful welcome that Atatürk gave to Reza Shah and the accompanying Iranian delegation. An extensive tour of industrial, military and welfare achievements was prepared by Atatürk for Reza Shah, and in this way, Reza Shah saw the factories, facilities, universities and military achievements of the Turks up close. Two things were clearly visible on Reza Shah's face during the visits. The joy and delight resulting from the excessive respect that one of Iran's most powerful neighbors had for Iranian leaders and statesmen, and the other, Reza Shah's regret and pity that Iran had yet to reach the position of Turkey in those days in terms of social and development aspects. During his short trip to Turkey, Reza Shah had noticed that the Turkish people had successfully managed the confrontation between traditions and modern manifestations and elements. Therefore, he decided to undertake similar reforms in Iran. The first step in this field was to train students in a scientific way inside Iran and with an updated Iranian culture. Despite sending forces to study in Europe, this need was still strongly felt. Ali Asghar Hekmat proposed the establishment of a university, which was immediately accepted. The construction of the University of Tehran building began in May 1934 in Jalaliye Garden. And finally, with 6 faculties, the organization and structure of the university emerged. In this way, the University of Tehran began its work as Iran's first organized and regular scientific base. The next step towards harmonizing the appearance of Iranian society with other parts of the world was to carry out reforms among ordinary people. In early summer of 1935, the government approved the bill making the use of the fedora hat compulsory. The new hat, unlike the Pahlavi hat design, was wide-brimmed, and this time it also applied to clerics and seminary students, and in this way, the presence of clerics in society in clerical clothing became more limited, which resulted in their anger. A group of seminary students gathered in the Goharshad Mosque in Mashhad and delivered speeches against the government. This gathering quickly turned violent, and officers used firearms to disperse them. In this incident, a number of people were killed and injured, and in this way the distance between the clergy and Reza Shah became greater than ever. Reza Shah was not anti-religious, but he saw no contradiction between modernity and the rulings of Islam. His government did not propagate against Islam at all. The Quran, Sharia, and jurisprudence were part of the education curriculum he founded. One of the first faculties established at the University of Tehran was the Faculty of Theology and Islamic Studies of today, or the Faculty of Rational and Transmitted Sciences of that time. Anyone who wanted to went to pilgrimage to Imam Reza, Hazrat Masume, or other pilgrimage centers, and Reza Shah's government absolutely did not pose any obstacle to anyone. The rapid development and growth of Iran during the Reza Shah era was an all-encompassing, coherent, and integrated social movement that covered all fields. But development and growth without freedom and consideration of women's rights would be meaningless. Until 1928, women could only leave the house with a chador at certain hours of the day. Until that year, women were not even allowed to go to public places such as restaurants. Reza Shah, however, placed addressing women's rights at the top of his government's duties. With the passage of the marriage law, the minimum age for it was set at 16, which was a great transformation in the lives of Iranian girls and gave them the opportunity to study and gain experience. Special pages for women were published in magazines and newspapers, and they gradually became aware of their rights and the status of women in other countries of the world. Reza Shah communicated the issue of unveiling to the then Prime Minister Mahmoud Jam in November 1935 as follows.
For nearly 2 years, this issue has been weighing heavily on my mind. Since I went to Turkey and saw their women casting off the veil and helping their men shoulder to shoulder in the affairs of the country.
A week before the decree to remove the chador, tailors who knew Western fashion were busy. 2,000 mantos had been ordered from Tehran's tailors. The excitement and speed of events were so fast that from the 4th to the 17th of day, about 1.3 million words of coded telegrams were transmitted between the capital and the provinces to inform officials of new instructions to prevent incidents. On the 17th of day, the day of the opening of the new building of the Preliminary Teachers College, Reza Shah attended the celebration. The Queen and princesses also accompanied him without chadors. Reza Shah had asked all his ministers to attend the ceremony with their wives without veils. The appearance of the women at this opening ceremony was interesting and spectacular. Long, ankle-length dresses, makeup, and hats that they wore like beginners looked awkward. For the first time, the ministers saw each other's wives' faces, and since they didn't know each other, they were introduced. Reza Shah, with signs of satisfaction on his face, turned to the women who, for the first time in centuries of Iranian history, appeared so freely outside the home, and said,
Until now, the women of this country, by being excluded from society, have not been able to show their inherent talent and merit. But now, with the transformation that has appeared in their lives, they are going to enjoy other benefits of society, in addition to the outstanding privilege of motherhood. Now that you have entered society and taken a step forward for the happiness of yourselves and your homeland, know that it is your duty to work for the greatness and elevation of your homeland's name. The future happiness of the country is in your hands. You will be the educators of the future generation. and it is you who can be good teachers and deliver good individuals to Iranian society.
The education of Mohammad Reza Shah's eldest son, ended after 5 years in Switzerland, and in 1315 he returned to Iran to his father to continue his education at the military academy. Reza Shah, due to personal habits and sensitivities, could not leave the close and sometimes repeated inspection of projects under construction only to his staff and entourage. Having the young crown prince by his side, he would attend inspections and official ceremonies with him. Reza Shah was always a soldier. In the military sector, the expansion and equipping of military forces continued. The three branches of the army were now organized, and the Iranian army had 127,000 soldiers. Weapons factories were established. The latest type of Brno rifle and all its accessories reached the production stage in Iran. Hospitals were built for the army, and soldiers were forced to learn to read and write. Navy officers were trained in Italy, and Iran purchased several warships from Italy. The issue of purchasing various types of aircraft was raised. Equipping the newly founded air fleet took place over a very short period, so that suddenly 120 aircraft were added to the small number of previous aircraft, and the Shahbaz aircraft factory began operations. Iran's development system was extensive, and military and economic development went hand in hand. The end of the second five-year reign of Reza Shah was accompanied by the fruition and opening of many industrial and development projects throughout Iran. Huge projects, each of which was considered a first but effective step in shaping the social and economic structure of Iran. The number of industrial factories, excluding oil industry facilities, increased 17-fold. In 1304, there were fewer than 20 modern industrial factories in the country, and as a result, over a decade, the number of workers and wage earners increased 50-fold. news of the train's arrival in Tehran was the result of several years of continuous and non-stop work to bring this huge project to fruition. Many bridges and tunnels were built and opened along the new routes to complete and expand the railway. The most famous of which were the Veresk Bridge and the Great Bridge over the Karun River. After the opening of the northern and southern routes of the railway, finally on the 30th of Bahman, 1315, the northern railway reached Tehran. Majid Ahi, Minister of Roads and Communications, handed the last bolt to Reza Shah to tighten, connecting the Trans-Iranian Railway. The first train entered Tehran from Bandar Shah. Reza Shah could now see the future he envisioned for his country with his own eyes. The Iranian Railway project was completed in Shahrivar 1317 at a cost of $160 million, a huge project, all of whose capital was provided by Iran itself. No loan was taken from any government, and no part of it belonged to foreign governments. Now the reforms of Reza Shah and his statesmen had borne fruit, and he himself was at the peak of power. Rebuilding and improving the appearance of Iranian cities was not Reza Shah's only concern. The recovery and recognition of historical heritage also received his attention. Having shown his interest in ancient Iranian roots years ago by changing the calendar from zodiac signs like Pisces and Aries to Avestan months like Farvardin and Khordad, he was now searching for the remnants of that same era. Reza Shah ordered excavations in the ruins of Persepolis, which he had encountered for the first time during his time as Sardar Sepah, while escorting Ahmad Shah Qajar to Europe. Foreign archaeologists came to Iran, and exploration work began at Persepolis. Parts of Persepolis that had remained buried and hidden underground for years were unearthed and discovered. Reza Shah later, when the eastern staircase of Darius's palace was unearthed, visited this ancient monument again. He was fascinated and captivated by the ancient cuneiform inscriptions. His interest was such that he wanted to know all the details of the inscriptions, surprising the foreign head of the excavation team. The discovery and restoration of the ancient ruins of Persepolis also influenced the architecture of Tehran. Tehran's new buildings and structures were modeled not on major European cities, but on Persepolis. Also, to preserve, develop, and promote the Persian language, the Academy of Iran was established by the Ministry of Education. The first academy, in line with the nationalist spirit of the Reza Shah era, set out to demonstrate the capability of the Persian language and eliminated the excessive reliance on Arabic in scientific and technical fields. It also provided Persian substitutes for many words that had entered from foreign languages. In the field of literature, after years of neglect, classical Iranian poets saw a resurgence of interest. The Ferdowsi millenary celebration was held, and 40 prestigious Iranologists from 17 countries traveled to Iran. A worthy and magnificent mausoleum was built for Ferdowsi, with a design inspired by the tomb of Cyrus. A similar thing was done for Hafez and Saadi, and their humble tombs were replaced by beautifully designed architectural structures. Before that, the identity of each individual was defined within their tribe or lineage, and even Iran's monarchical systems were ethnic and tribal. The concept of homeland, which had previously been defined only for freedom fighters and soldiers on the battlefields against foreigners, now became common among the rest of the people, with the political and economic independence of the central government. The effort to revive the name of Iran was pursued not only domestically, but also internationally. Until the early 20th century, the world knew Iran by names such as Persia, and it was not called Iran. The name Iran until then was only a geographical term used to identify the Iranian plateau on maps. At the suggestion of cultural figures around Reza Shah, the Iranian government notified all foreign governments that henceforth the country's name must be written as Iran in European languages. Reza Shah's suspicion and paranoia toward his trusted statesman gradually took a serious turn, and with the dismantling of his inner circle, either through political elimination or forced retirement, the heavy burden of managing the country fell on Reza Shah's shoulders. Gradually, a closed atmosphere emerged in Iran's political arena, and criticism of the government was not allowed to be published or spoken. Reza Shah had grown older and more suspicious of foreign ambassadors than ever. For about 3 years, he had not received the ambassadors of the United States, Great Britain, and other countries in private audience. Reza Shah himself complained about his entourage, saying they did not give him realistic reports on the state of the country. Not meeting with European ambassadors on one hand, and on the other hand, the signing of a major trade agreement in 1317 between Iran and Germany, which led to an influx of German technicians into Iran, was seen as an alarm bell for Britain and the Soviet Union. With the outbreak of World War II, the situation became even worse. On the 11th of Shahrivar, 1318, 2 days after Germany's invasion of Poland, Iran once again declared its neutrality, just as in the First World War. Reza Shah thought that by declaring neutrality in this war, he would secure Iran from entering this conflict. At this time, the BBC Persian service, which had just begun broadcasting, constantly criticized Reza Shah's wealth and his dictatorial rule. For Britain and the Soviet Union, the presence of Germans in Iran was intolerable. Britain wanted to prevent German access to the oil resources of southern Iran and also Iraq, and on the other hand was worried about German encroachment on Iran's eastern borders. Protecting Afghanistan and subsequently India was vital for Britain. For the Soviet Union too, losing the oil resources of Baku in northern Iran would be costly. As the war continued, pressure on Iran to expel German nationals increased. But since a major part of Iran's facilities and industries, including the railway and steel mills, operated under the supervision of German technicians, Reza Shah opposed their departure. Iran eventually expelled 60 Germans residing in Iran. But this action was both too late and too little for the Allied forces. The war was getting closer to Iran's borders day by day. At the beginning of the summer of 1320, Britain invaded Iraq and reached Iran's border. Finally, after Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, the British cabinet asked its army headquarters to prepare plans for an invasion of Iranian territory. The Soviet Union also declared its readiness to join this invasion. Soviet and British forces invaded Iran at 4 in the morning on the 3rd of Shahrivar. Many Iranian cities were bombed. Only the Iranian Navy resisted the British, but they too were quickly defeated, and southern Iran fell to British forces.
One of the biggest improvements in our position is, of course, the clean-up in Iran, or as Mr. Churchill would call it, Persia. Indian troops played a big part in the operations, which, although not absolutely bloodless, didn't last long, and that's the next best thing. They found that the Royal Navy had already dealt with the Shah's fleet. Other gunboats were captured, more or less intact, and a guard placed on board.
The Iranian army collapsed within 48 hours. The royal family also fled to Isfahan, which had not yet been captured, to seek safety. Only Reza Shah and the crown prince remained in the palace. Resistance was in Reza Shah's nature. The Iranian government requested an armistice on the 6th of Shahrivar. After establishing themselves in southern Iran, the Allied forces set conditions for the government and gave them 48 hours to implement them. They demanded the expulsion of the Germans, as well as permission to use Iranian territory to transport war equipment, food, and medicine to the Soviet Union. Reza Shah, however, did not accept these conditions, and Soviet forces set out to occupy Tehran. The news of the Soviet forces' advance was a devastating blow to Reza Shah's morale. He could not bear to watch foreign troops parading in the Iranian capital. To preserve his dynasty, with which the fate of Iran was also intertwined, Reza Shah accepted the proposal of Foruhi, his prime minister, who had been chosen to replace Mansour. Foruhi suggested that Reza Shah abdicate, and to the public's utter astonishment, he quickly accepted. The result of this difficult choice was the preservation of Iran's independence in that situation. Foruhi, who had drafted Reza Shah's first speech, now had to write his abdication letter after 15 years. With the very same carved pen belonging to Reza Shah himself.
Since I have devoted all my strength to the affairs of the country over these past years and have become weak, I feel that the time has now come for a younger and more energetic force to take over the affairs of the country, which require constant vigilance, and to provide for the prosperity of the nation. Therefore, I have delegated the throne to the Crown Prince, my successor, and stepped down from office. From today, which is the 25th of Shahrivar 13 and 20, the entire nation, both civil and military, must recognize my Crown Prince and legal successor as sovereign, and show him the same loyalty they showed to me.
On the very day of the abdication, an ordinary car without diplomatic plates was prepared to take Reza Shah to his family in Isfahan. While saying goodbye to his father, the Crown Prince expressed his concern about a Soviet attack on Tehran and the outbreak of chaos. Reza Shah, however, reassured the young king that with his departure, all unrest would subside. The car carrying Reza Shah left for Isfahan, and at the same time, Mohammad Reza Shah went to the parliament to take the royal oath. The text of the young Shah's oath had stronger divine and religious references compared to his father's. He recalled that on his coronation day, in his first step toward Iranian modernization, his father had taken the crown and placed it on his own head, contrary to the tradition of post-Islamic kings, rather than letting the clergy do it. While the people were astonished by the pace of political changes in the country, BBC Radio continued to criticize Reza Shah's rule in its Persian language program, and even Nazi Germany's Persian language radio was now speaking out against Reza Shah. Reza Shah's personal wealth and the crown jewels became the top news on foreign radio stations and opposition newspapers. This news weighed heavily on Reza Shah's heart, as a plan to nationalize the crown jewels and entrust them to Bank Melli had been approved with his signature some time ago. Finally, several representatives were chosen by the parliament as observers to go to Bank Melli and inspect the jewel treasury. The inspector's report put an end to the rumors. Not a single piece of jewelry was missing from there. Reza Shah's excessive desire to acquire land during the years of his reign became the subject of radio reports and dealt the heaviest blow to his reputation and popularity among the public. Reza Shah rarely visited his estates or even had the opportunity to leave the capital. For this reason, to put an end to all rumors, he transferred all his property and assets to his son, Mohammad Reza Shah, in a letter and prepared for his journey. An uncertain journey to an unknown destination on this planet, which the British were to choose for him. Something that affected Reza Shah even more than the vague fate that awaited him. Initially, they considered Chile for his residence. They said the climate there was like Iran's, but sometime later, there was talk of Argentina. He kept saying, "I would rather die in Iran than go abroad." The preparations for the trip were made. Reza Shah, along with his family and other companions, left Isfahan for Bandar Abbas on the 30th of Shahrivar. Illness and earache gave Reza Shah no peace, and he needed rest. But the British consul representative insisted that the ship had arrived in Bandar Abbas and would not stay for more than 3 days. This insistence upset Reza Shah. It was decided that they would first go to Bombay. They set off for India from Bandar Abbas on a small British mail ship named Bandra. As long as the soil of Iran was visible, the Shah did not take his eyes off the coast. His children saw the glint of tears in his eyes for the first time. After spending 4 difficult days on the ship and enduring the extremely hot weather, the coast of Bombay appeared in the distance. But to the utter astonishment of the passengers, the ship stopped in the middle of the sea. They were informed by the government of India that they could not disembark in Bombay and had to wait 5 days on the sea for an ocean liner. The refusal to allow the former Shah of Iran and his family to enter Indian soil was due to the fear of the reactions of Indian Muslims, because to them, he was the king of a Muslim country under the supervision of British forces. Finally, contrary to the agreements, Reza Shah and his companions were informed that the island of Mauritius had been chosen for their permanent residence. News that made Reza Shah very angry. He kept saying, "I am not their prisoner. I have migrated freely from my country and can go wherever I want. Where on earth is Mauritius?" They were forced to leave the Bandra and were transferred by boat to a larger ship named Burma. The passengers of the Burma, after 10 difficult and exhausting days on the deck of this ship, arrived in Mauritius at dawn on the 23rd of May, 1320. A tropical island in the western Indian Ocean, a British colony with extremely hot weather and torrential rains. But being away from home more than the bad weather tormented Reza Shah. So much so that he even hated the name Mauritius. He who since his teenage years and since he went to the Cossack Brigade had never worn civilian clothes and had never taken off his military boots, was now bothered by the unbearable lightness of these civilian clothes and was not comfortable in them. Reza Shah's majesty and charisma had collapsed, and his piercing eyes were emptied of life. He repeatedly told his son Ali Reza, as well as the British governor of the island, that if he knew he was going to be sent to Mauritius instead of Chile or Argentina, he would never have boarded the Bandra. no communication was allowed between Iran and the residents of Mauritius, until the tripartite Treaty of Alliance between Iran, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union was signed on the 9th of Bahman, 1320. After that, every day Reza Shah was waiting to receive a letter from Tehran, especially in his son Mohammad Reza's handwriting. Reza Shah's family was with him, but the companion of his loneliness in exile was his eldest daughter, Shams. With the return of Shams Pahlavi and Fatima from Mauritius to Tehran, the father lost his greatest source of peace of mind. Even the seasons in exile had turned against Reza Shah. He spent his first Nowruz away from Iran and his children in the autumn of Mauritius. Finally, with his repeated requests to the Mauritius authorities and given Reza Shah's poor health, arrangements were made for his departure to the port of Durban in southeastern Africa, and then from there to Johannesburg. The residence of Reza Shah and his companions in Johannesburg was better than Mauritius, but Reza Shah's physical condition deteriorated. Reza Shah did not accept his illness, and until his first severe heart attack, he blamed his poor health on the bad food. Reza Shah's severely ill heart only survived 2 years of residence in Johannesburg. There too, the thought of Iran would not leave him in peace. He constantly compared Johannesburg to Tehran, and longed for the things he had not finished. Reza Shah's comfort in the final hours of his life was the return of his daughter Shams to his side. On Wednesday, the 4th of Mordad, 1323, Reza Shah, contrary to his usual habit, did not wake up at dawn. Death had gently embraced him. The soil of Iran, however, was still occupied by Britain and the Soviet Union in those days. And unable to even accept the lifeless body of Reza Shah, it was decided to transport the Shah's body to Egypt instead of Iran, but due to the problems of the World War, the lack of ships, and the uncertainty of their arrival and departure dates, it had to remain in Johannesburg for a while. This transfer took 3 months, and finally, the mummified body of Reza Shah was entrusted to the Al-Rifa'i Mosque in Cairo, Egypt, to be transferred to Iran at an appropriate opportunity. This opportunity arose about 6 years later. And Mohammad Reza Shah, along with a delegation, set off for Cairo to return his father to Iran. The plane carrying Reza Shah's body first landed in Saudi Arabia, and after performing religious ceremonies and offering prayers in the shrine of Prophet Muhammad, it landed in Ahvaz on the 17th of Ordubes, 1329. The cabinet members were present at the airport for Reza Shah's funeral procession. As the carriage carrying Reza Shah's body passed near any city, it was met with a magnificent welcome by the people and a delegation of local officials.
The
Islam and the risk of potential terrorist operations by them, a number of scholars and clerics from each region had also come to pay their respects. A black carriage and a special train were designated for the rest of the journey to Tehran. On the same day, Reza Shah's body was first taken to Qum for circumambulation and then transferred to a special mausoleum in Ray, next to the shrine of Shah Abdulazim. Reza Shah was buried during a magnificent ceremony attended by his son Mohammad Reza Shah, his wife, the Queen Mother, and other members of the royal family, members of the cabinet, delegations from countries around the world, and the people of Tehran. His mausoleum was a magnificent white building built to the west of the shrine of Shah Abdulazim, covering an area of more than 9,000 square meters and with a height of about 25 meters. Out of respect for Shah Abdulazim, the height of Reza Shah's mausoleum was 7 meters shorter than his dome. This building had 2 floors. The upper floor was the entrance hall, and the lower floor was where the tombstone was located. The tombstone was black, and a golden crown was placed on top of it. Reza Shah, contrary to the tradition of the kings before him, did not seek to destroy the previous governments and used the most efficient of them to advance and implement his goals. Reza Shah's style of government was criticized and condemned, regardless of the fact that during that same period, not a single democracy could be found as an example in the whole of Asia, and even countries like Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Germany were experiencing fascist rule. Reza Shah was certainly not a flawless king, but he is undoubtedly the father of modern Iran and the architect of Iran's 20th century history.
Killed them in the Gohar Shad Mosque for their Islamic and religious demands. Now the Iranian nation cannot bear to see his grave being next to the grave of Shah Abdul Azim.
Closing the gun.